Hello everyone, thanks for joining me in this video. It is quite interesting and in this wave of events and development, the communities of Shagari and Bimasa in Sokoto State are no longer waiting for the security operatives, the soldiers, the military, the police and the joint task force to guarantee their safety, just as the DG of DSS has admonished or advised all communities. Mobilize yourself and defend yourself. They are no longer waiting for the endless arguments for or against the question of state police. Of recent, there have been arguments by the ex-military generals warning Tinubu of the impending danger or possibility of using the state police for political witch hunting and the rest of them. But that is not the case with the Shagari community and Bimasa community in Sokoto. You know, of recent, we've seen the renewed attack on Sokoto communities, which of recent, Tambawa came to say that even the life of Sultan of Sokoto was eventually threatened. And he escaped, he narrowly escaped one of the onslaught and or ambush. It's quite a very interesting development. But rather than crying, wailing, and endless frustration being expressed by blocking major roads and the rest of them by word of protest, the communities have stood high and tall to confront these monsters, these nefarious entities who have come there to kill, steal, and destroy the very essence of existence, not even sparing anyone regardless of your religion, tribe. They are after humanity, whether you're a Muslim or Christian or Christian. It is now done on the northern people that these people are not just after the Christian, but they're after everyone that has to do with humans, provided you do not align with their own, of course, thought or intent. It is quite interesting. Now, reports reaching us according to Punch published news that the Shagari and Bimasa communities have launched a counterattack against these terrorists and eventually were able to rescue majority of their kidnapped relatives. That is a quite interesting and commendable action. And why reportedly leaving scores, about 15 of these assailants, these deadly criminals, dead, of course, in a fierce confrontations. They could no longer watch their own people being taken and ransom being demanded. They could no longer continue to watch their daily lives being ruined. They are now living their lives in fear, in apprehension, in such state of uncertainty. It is quite a disturbing development which have defied the efforts of security personnel. The Nigerian military being considered as third in the hierarchy of capacity, the military capacity in Africa. But you begin to ask, why has the fight against Boko Haram insurgency been become almost impossible for the Nigerian military, the Air Force, the Navy to combat with? Honestly, being the most or the third most capable, the third most military uh, outfit in Africa that has the capacity and wherewithal. It is quite a very disturbing development, as some have expressed. Even majority of the militaries are willing to tender resignation because some of them has been deeply affected by what they consider a sabotage or politicizing of the military advances and oppressions. And sometimes they believe that they are not given the go-ahead order to confront these monsters or deadly assailants who are also after their lives. Sometimes they are being ambushed and killed by the same terrorist gangs, and that have demoralized majority of them who have expressed dissatisfaction over what is going on. Now, this is about the residents of Shagare and Bimasa communities in Sokoto state have launched a counterattack against bandits, rescuing their kidnapped relatives and reportedly sending some of them to the creator for judgment. That is quite interesting. Just as the Director General of the DSS narrated that while he was serving in the northern part of the country, the same thing happened repeatedly, not until the communities decided that we are going to stand up to this challenge. We cannot continue to watch our own people being systematically and gradually annihilated. He narrated it, of course, before the camera. It's a public notice. It's before the public domain. He said that not until the community decided to mobilize themselves, of course, and prepare for the worst. And eventually the day came when these assailants thought it was just like every other day. Eventually they met stiff resistance, and many of them on both sides there were casualties, but after such deadly assault or confrontations, they never made a repeat. And from that, henceforth, the people were able to secure their own liberty and freedom. They never waited for the military and any mandate being given by the military oppressions and the rest of them. So that is a very a very laudable feat achieved by these local vigilantes and youths who decided to mobilize themselves and secure their own safety. It is quite an interesting development, honestly. And now there have been counter front and back arguments surrounding the state or creation of state police, as the president BL00DB have expressed his intention that the creation of state police is unavoidable. He insists that that is the only alternative to fighting this insurgency as they continue to escalate. Now, for those military or the retired military personnel who cited whatever might be their reasons, that could be, of course, used as a weapon against the opposition party by the state governors and the rest of them. It will create some sort of anarchy within the system. Well, that being said, but the truth is that if these military generals cannot provide solutions, a better solutions to the lingering set of insecurity, they keep on blaming Tinubu, blaming every other person that should be blamed, they thought should be blamed, and blame game doesn't solve the problem. With their expertise and experience, what are they bringing to the table? What are they bringing to the table? Community policing is the way to go. If each community, just as we're seeing the Shagari and Bimasa communities today, they have risen up to defend themselves. If they have been waiting for the federal police or an order from the Inspector General of Police to give a marching order before the presence of police personnel could take actions in their regions, and what is the numerical strength of this police force? How much are they? How many are they to cover the entire 774 local governments or thereabout, let alone different communities? So it is not possible. What is the population of the police force personnel in Nigeria? So if they have been waiting for Inspector General of Police or for the Federal Control Police to give them a go-ahead order to protect themselves, they would have been annihilated. their families, their loved ones, their children may have been abducted, and they'll be looking for if actually they survive, because the intention or the intent of these assailants was to kill them, displace them, annihilate them if by any means possible, and take over their ancestral homes. So if they have been waiting for an order to be given or a mandate to be given to go after these assailants, they would have waited for eternity. So there is no way the ex-military heads could fight this state policing. By state policing, I mean community policing. Let the communities be empowered to protect themselves, because they knew the major routes in and out of the community. They knew where most of these assailants and their way of oppression, just as the Zamfara state governors made a very striking revelation that with his phone gadget, he can locate, of course, the various camps or locations of these bandits, these terrorists. But he's been frustrated because he does not have control of the security apparatus. If powers are being given to him, he would end banditry just in 2 months, a matter of 60 days. He said he's going to end banditry. He knew where they are. He said with his gadget, he can see them. Possibly it could be a very high wired tech phone. As a governor, he could procure such. Now, if a governor who has no military background could have a phone that could describe the locations of these assailants, where they are camping, their mode of operations, and the rest of them, how much more the defense headquarters? With all the billions being expended in military procurements and the rest of them since Buhari's time, running into billions of dollars, would they be able to procure area surveillance drones that monitor the operations and they use drones in their activities? Why should the Nigerian military be ambushed? Would they be able to monitor, of course, the modus operandi of these people? It is not a rocket science. An ordinary governor who has no, perhaps, deep military training, said he could see them, he could sight them, he could locate them from his phone. Now, the question is, could it be a matter of conspiracy or compromise in the fight against this insurgency? If an ordinary governor who said he does not have control of this military or security apparatus or personnel under his control, he would have ended banditry ravaging the entire Zamfara state just in a matter of 60 days. But in the past 2 decades, the Nigerian Defense Headquarters, the military, the Air Force, the Navy has been contending with these same people that a serving governor said just 2 months is enough for him. If he's given an order, if he can control the military apparatus, possibly if the law is enacted or passed into being for the creation of state police, which eventually, if empowered, could use them to flush out those bandits and stop their nefarious and dastard inhuman oppressions, activities unleashed on the defenseless indigenous people of Zamfara states. Now, if the governor can have such boldness to make such submissions, revelations, Now, what is happening to the security operatives? That has been considered as the third by ranking of capacity and military, of course, know-how on gadgets in Africa. Now, what exactly is happening? The same defense force, the same headquarter, defense headquarter, the government of the executive, the government at the center to fight this state of insecurity. As some have alleged that some there are vested interests even within those in the corridor of power. They are using it for monetary or political or economic gains. It is quite interesting, honestly, just as I've said, for the whatever be the reasons or the arguments behind the objections of the ex or retired military personnel from the northern region opposing the state police. This has been the cry for several decades. State police will enhance local policing and security. You must not wait to take order from the IG sitting uh, under a condition in his office from Abuja uh, to get clearance before you could confront issue that should be considered as an emergency. If you are not being given order, you can act. And if the IGA has an interest in whatever is going on, of course, the people of the victims have to suffer for that particular interest. But if it is localized, each state, the National State Assembly, the governor, can make quick decisions, can take proactive steps or actions to back, of course, their moves. Rather than waiting something happen on the way from, just imagine Lagos State and you have to wait someone from Abuja to give an order before such could be arrested. Such incidents uh, could be arrested or normalcy could be restored. It's a very worrisome development, honestly. But if the states controls their own security policing down to the communities, I believe that is the essence of creating the state police so that each regions down to the state will have their own community members recruited into the or drafted into the state security as a way of curtailing the excesses because it's the locals who understood who is who are aliens, who are those informants or saboteurs and the rest of them. It is quite interesting, honestly. But then I think the action of these communities have reaffirmed again the strengths of unity and courage by different communities. If they have not awakened their consciousness to take actions, definitely by now you may have been hearing scores of people adopted and killed, several communities sacked. They would have been, of course, in the list of those communities that have been sacked or invaded and eventually displaced by these assailants. But thank God they stood up. The residents, they decided to take their own security or prioritize their security and their safety as a responsibility they owe to themselves and to their communities. And eventually that yielded the desired result. Hopefully, these assailants might not stage a comeback for a very long time because once they meet stiff resistance, definitely they will retreat. back to their safe havens or hideouts. But whenever they come and record success in the nefarious activities and the heinous operations, definitely that will embolden them. They will have more resources to finance and, of course, plan for the next onslaught, more deadly onslaught in the course of events. But now that they have seen that several communities are now living in that consciousness of the reality, knowing that even the same assailant, the bandits, have blood running in their streams. So they can't be coming to kidnap, harass, sexually exploit the wives, the daughters, and think they can get away with that. They are not superhumans. So once they are being confronted, of course, it will deter them from further escalations or possibly planning more uh, way of expanding their tentacles so that they could possibly take a revenge. Such communities must not go to sleep because these people might possibly be nursing another brutal onslaught that might eventually take them unawares or be more brutal. So those residents, communities, vigilante in Shagari, Sokoto, states must wake up in Bimasa and the rest of them. They can't imagine if, as sensitive as Sokoto State is, being the seat of caliphate, could be experiencing such level of unrest and criminality and the state of insecurity. Now, you can imagine now which other part of the north could be safe. It's a very worrisome development, but that is, of course, the reality uh, as far as Sokoto is concerned today. We hope that the, the head of traditional rulers or religious clerics should also address these escalations because it's a worrisome development and must be a source of concern to everyone that cares.